Hi, fifth graders. This is Miss Advina. And right now we're going to be looking at Unit 2, Week 3, Lesson 5. This is the next part of Tom's return. Our objectives for this are going to be, and let me get my pen out so you can see as I'm reading. I will be able to read to identify and annotate key events. Use key events to summarize a text. Share my understanding with my classmates. Write to demonstrate my understanding of key events. So let's get on over to the text. So where we left off, every time we come back to a text, I want to go back over what the key events were. That way I don't get lost by just picking up where I left off. So some of the key events are the boy spied two men digging up the gold and overheard plans to hide it. They kept a lookout for that Spaniard when he should come to town spying out for chances to do his revengeful job. They agreed to believe that he might possibly mean someone else, not after revenge on Tom or Huck. And the adventure of the day mightily tormented Tom's dreams that night. So now we have the dream sequence that happened. And so Tom is doubting whether or not any of this happened at this point. And we're waiting for it to open. And Tom concluded to let Huck lead up to the subject. If he did not do it, then the adventure would be proved to have been only a dream. So those were the three main events that took place. Those events are key details because they help to move our plot along. I also wrote the paragraph right here, which is our IVF summary. In paragraphs 1 through 9 of Tom's Secret, the author tells that the boys knew about a treasure, but it is an unsafe situation. The boys decide to watch the Spaniard. Then that night, Tom dreams about the treasure. He thinks that it might all be a dream and goes to Huck in the morning to see if it really happened. Now, this next section you were supposed to do on your own. So we're looking at when was that moment when Tom realized that it wasn't a dream. And that's where I underlined this. Taint a dream then. Taint a dream. Because Huck had mentioned it, so there's no way they could have both been dreaming about the same thing. Moving the plot along, they come to a decision. Well, Tom comes to a decision. Find him. Track the money. So there's our fourth key event that moves our plot along. Now, right over here, I did write the summary for paragraphs 10 through 26. In paragraphs 10 through 26 of Tom's Secret, the author explains how Tom decides that the treasure wasn't a dream. The boys decide to track the money to figure out what number 2 is. And they come to the decision that it is a reference to a room at one of the two taverns. So this town only has 2 taverns. They went to the first one and found that it couldn't possibly be that one. Well, let's go ahead and continue reading. And for this part, all of the previous paragraphs 10 through 26 you should have done on your own, but I do have them available for you to look at this point. See how close you got to this. Now, I'm going to be continuing with paragraphs 27 through 28. Now, for this part, I am going to be modeling my thinking. I didn't model the other part because that was really for you to do on your own. Tom was off at once. He did not care to have Huck's company in public places. He was gone half an hour. He found that in the best tavern, number 2 had long been occupied by a young lawyer, and was still so occupied. In the less ostentatious house, number 2 was a mystery. So I'm looking at that paragraph 27, and this paragraph narrates the start of Tom's search for number 2. He finds out that in the best tavern, room 2 is occupied by a lawyer. This discovery is a key event because it eliminates one of the possibilities. So I need to come over and switch my tool. And I'm going to underline that. So number 2 had long been occupied by a young lawyer and was still so occupied. So we know that it wasn't in the better cat tavern that they're possibly hiding the treasure. So then he has to keep on going to find out what number 2 was. And in the less ostentatious house, that means less fancy, number 2 was a mystery. So that's going to lead us in the direction of where this plot is going. Number 2 was a mystery. Now, that's also a transition. It lets me know what paragraph 28 is going to be about. Because that was the end of paragraph 27, I can reasonably assume that paragraph 28 is going to be about this mystery. So let me go ahead and switch tools real quick so that you can track along with me. And there's my pen. The tavern keeper's young son said it was kept locked all the time, and he never saw anybody go into it or come out of it except at night. He did not know any particular reason for the state of things. Had some little curiosity, but it was rather feeble. Had made the most of the mystery by entertaining himself with the idea that that room was haunted. Had noticed that there was a light in there the night before. So having read that, now I have more information. Paragraph 28 gives us the next key event. Tom finds out that room 2 in the other tavern has a mysterious occupant who only comes and goes at night. I'll underline the first part of the first sentence because this looks like the key to the mystery of number 2. So let me get my tool. The tavern keeper's young son said that it was kept locked all the time, and he never saw anybody go into it or come out of it except at night. I'm not going to underline the rest of this because those are not key details. Those are just further explanations. So now I'm going to move on to paragraphs 29 and 30. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go to paragraphs 29 and 30. Let's go all the way to 31. That's what I found out, Huck. I reckon that's the very number 2 we're after. I reckon it is, Tom. Now what you going to do? Let me think. Tom thought a long time. Then he said, I'll tell you. The back door of that number 2 is the door that comes out into the little close alley between the tavern and the old rattle trap of a brick store. Now you get a hold of all the door keys you can find, and I'll nip all of Auntie's, and the first dark night we'll go there and try 'em. And mind you, keep a lookout, because he said he was going to drop into town and spy around once more for a chance to get his revenge. If you see him, you just follow him. And if he don't go to that number 2, That ain't the place. I'm going to finish reading this and then we'll go back and annotate. Lordy, I don't want to follow him by myself. Why? It'll be night, sure. He mightn't ever see you. And if he did, maybe he'd never think anything. Well, if it's pretty dark, I reckon I'll track him. I don't know. I'll try. You bet. I'll follow him. If it's dark, Huck, why, he might have found out he couldn't get his revenge and be going right after that money. It's so, Tom. It's so. I'll follow him. I will, by jingoes. Now you're talking. Don't you ever weaken, Huck, and I won't. Okay, so that finishes paragraphs 29 through 39. But I want to go back to 29 through 31. This conversation serves as a transition between Tom's discoveries, and what the boys decided to do next. I won't underline anything here because I don't see any key events for the plot. Now, I'm going to give you 3 to 5 minutes to read paragraphs 32 through 39 again and identify the key events. Now, I want you to really think, what does Tom want to do with the keys? What does Tom want Huck to do if the thief shows up? And what does Huck agree to do in the end? So I'm looking back up here. And like we said, there's really nothing there, but there are some key events in this last section. So it's your job to find them. Now, I need to go back over here to my OneNote. Close reading, week 10, Tom's Secret. And I had already done 1 through 5 and 6 through 9. It's not there right now, but I will be filling all that back in later. I want to really focus on 27 through 31. Now, we're not going to start with the main idea. We're actually going to start with the key details. What were the key details that happened in that section? So I'm going to come back to the previous page. Now, in this section, Tom had gone to the 2 different taverns. And when he went there, he found out from the tavern keeper's young son that one of the rooms in the second tavern was a mystery. So I'm going to go to my text box and I want to put that into a quick summary. So in paragraphs 27 through 31 of Tom's Secret, and you notice I put that comma right inside the quotation. We normally don't put the comma after the quotation. So in paragraphs 27 through 31 of Tom's Secret, the author shows Tom going to the 2 taverns and trying to figure out which one the treasure might be in. He decides it is in the less fancy one with the person who only comes and goes at night. So now I have my quick summary right there, and it goes with these key details. Now my next step is actually getting those key details into my OneNote. So I can use those same ideas. Tom goes to both taverns. Tom finds a lawyer in room 2 of the fancy one, and he finds a room where he finds room 2 in the less fancy one has an occupant. An occupant is someone who stays there that nobody ever sees. And I'm going to go ahead and put those bullet points so it's easier to see the three key details. And then I have to make an inference to decide what do those key details add up to as a main idea? How is it moving our plot along? So Tom, and I'm going to go back to my summary over here. Okay, so I looked at it, Tom's secret. The author shows Tom's going to the 2 taverns and trying to figure out which one the treasure might be in. So I'm going to go back to my OneNote. Tom goes to the 2 tavern to find out which one most likely has the treasure. And I'm going to leave it at that. Now you guys need to do paragraphs 32 and through 39 and find those key details and then bring it back to what do those key details add up to in terms of a main idea. So it's time to get those dendrites stretching and those synapses snapping so that you can finish meeting these objectives. I will be able to read to identify and annotate key events, use key events to summarize a text, share my understanding with my classmates, and write to demonstrate my understanding of key events. Happy learning!